Welcome to the Connection podcast series. We are sitting down with Mike Introna of MI Associates, and here we are on our fourth session. Today, Mike and I are going to be looking at the issues surrounding waste and waste management within the corrugated board plants and sheet plants. Mike, welcome. Thanks for joining us again. Obviously, big in the news at the moment, obviously, is the dreaded paper price increases. So, the recording of this session is very timely. In January, European and UK box plants saw anywhere from 30 to 40 euros a tonne increase on their paper prices. Speculation is that in February it's going to go again, which is quite unusual for the new year. But Mike, let's look at the ramifications that that's having, because obviously we're seeing it also even in the national press, people talking about long lead times on supply of boxes. Amazon's getting blamed for stealing all the corrugated. So, Mike, what can board plants and box plants be doing to sort of mitigate some of these awful increases that are taking place at the moment?
Okay, well, yeah, I think you've just about covered it all there, Dan. It's been a bit of a double kick in the teeth, hasn't it, for many in the corrugated industry. So you've got not just the January and February increases that I'm told are there. There's even talk of them trying to push another one in the next couple of months. White paper's going up in March, and then there's the contraction, if you like, of the supply chain, where, as you say, all the online retailers are getting blamed for taking all the corrugated, and I'm sure that they'll blame us for keep buying things online, but that's what it is. I think that there are a number of areas where I've always found opportunities in business, and clearly waste is one. Waste, whether that's the manufacturing waste or waste in other areas of the business. And I think the key thing is as a smaller business or sheet plant, if you can save on your paper, save on waste, then you're creating opportunity to effectively get some more orders out, which given the lead times that some people are seeing, and we're talking weeks, not days, and many weeks in some cases, and that's sometimes just get the paper in, let alone get the orders out to customers. But yeah, and I think I would potentially start right at the two ends of the process, if you like, not just necessarily what are we doing when we're manufacturing, but you've got your incoming paper supply, and how much of that are you losing before you even get it on a corrugator, or your incoming board supply, how much of that are you losing before you even start putting it through a converting machine, either through poor storage locations, things getting wet, things getting damaged, product getting damaged, paper reels, board getting damaged before it gets onto the machines, the way that they're transported to machines, are we damaging things with trucks, are we damage them with poor pallets or conveyors. And then at the other end of the business, obviously you've got your warehousing, and it's sometimes frightening going into some businesses and walking around and just saying, why have we got so much of this, or why have we got so much of that? And in one business that I was in not too long ago, which was a pretty forward-thinking business, pretty well automated with every system imaginable available to them, they weren't even doing a weekly stock check, and just getting that up to customer service so that the boys and girls in customer services could just double check with customers to make sure that can you either take this and take it off as hand, so we create some space and get some revenue for it, or making sure that we're not duplicating orders for product that we've already got in the warehouse, which is frighteningly repetitive sometimes when you go into businesses. So those two areas can open up significant opportunity. Then we're
Mike, why don't we start at the beginning then, in terms of the corrugating process, because you and I were chatting offline about some of the work that you did in your previous life, where you were just analysing and looking at just like the last 3 or 4 wraps of a reel, the difference that can make overall at the end of a year in terms of corrugating process. So let's start looking at some of the individual nuts and bolts that plants can be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly in one business, which was 150, 160 million square meter business sheet feeder, we did an analysis that just explained to the guys that if we could save 1 wrap per visit of the reel to the corrugator, and on average they were coming to a reel would come to the corrugator twice in its life, and it wasn't untypical to go and find that we were cutting 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 wraps off for various reasons, either through damage or what I call Geronimo syndrome, where we give it a good scalping rather and take 3, 4, 5, 6 layers off when it only needs 1 or 2. If we could save just 1 wrap per visit, that equated to £27,000 of paper then. If they then sold that paper rather than throwing it away, I think that took the number up to closer to £45,000 once you added in the profit that you would make from selling the product. So that was one area. I mean, there was a group within the businesses that I've worked before, and some good people that were going around businesses offering help, offering advice on how to reduce waste, particularly from the reel stores in to the corrugator. But not always was that advice heeded, or did they always have the people available to help implement some of the findings? But certainly in a reel store, I mean, things like just having your reels too close together and not enough space between them, so reels get damaged by the clamp when we're putting reels in or taking things out. Clamps themselves seem a relatively modest cost for having a clamp correctly lined. You can be damaging every single reel of paper that you move. And as we just said, if you damage just 1 layer of paper more than you need to when you move it, whether you're unloading it off the lorry or putting it in its storage location in the reel stores or taking it to the corrugator, it's £27,000 a year, or even on a modest business, it's going to be £20,000 a year that you're throwing away. So when someone turns the nose up at spending, I don't know, £3,000 or £4,000 on having a clamp refurbished, or maybe 10 on having one totally replaced, if that's what it's needed, depending on the type of machine, it's insignificant compared to some of the savings that you can generate.
And Mike, the interesting thing there is also we've got this issue of legacy box plants versus the more greenfield modern sites, because obviously the ultimate is, as we all move towards industry 4.0, is the robotic solutions, so driverless kind of setups. But do you think this is where the quantum leap is going to take place, in terms of those who've invested well in brand new facilities, etc., are going to reap the rewards, aren't they? Because as raw materials become, as you say, more expensive, longer lead times, it's going to be those incremental gains. It's like Dave Brailsford used to talk about with Sky, with his cycling team. It's all about incremental gains.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's 2 elements to that. If you've got the infrastructure in place where you can do things, but either in scale or by being able to use automated systems to take some of the human factors out, because you do sometimes come across problems where some clamp truck drivers have always done it this way, and it takes some time in bringing people along with you to change the way that they do things. So if you've got the space, you've got a purpose-built factory, and you build all that sort of thing, then that's fantastic. But sometimes you can find that having the space just makes matters worse. And I've been in some businesses where you've walked in a reel stores and it's not much bigger than my lounge. And you walk around and think, how are you actually putting 150 million square meters through this business? Because it's tiny. And you sometimes come back to what do you call it? It's the mother of all invention. Yeah, necessity, that's it. Sorry. Necessity is the mother of all invention. And when you haven't got the space, you've got to find ways to manage it more effectively. But I do agree with you. There are opportunities now that are developing for manless and automated systems for moving reels, moving board. We see it in the factories now with robotics being used, and manless fork trucks in some businesses. I know I went into a sheet feeder in Germany, 300 million square meters turnover, and I think that there were like 19 people employed, dark warehouses and all that sort of thing. And that's fantastic. You've got the money to lay that down, but sometimes it is just doing some of the simple things right, even if you're in a business that you don't have the ability to either spend money on huge capital projects, you don't have the space to do it, you don't have the space to expand. Sometimes you just got to think about, let's get the basics right.
So Mike, if we now move from the board plant environment, the larger integrated type environment, and start focusing then on the converting department, and therefore we could also put in that same category sheet plants. The sheet plant owners at the moment are facing delivery times on sheet board. Here we are in the first week in February. They're saying that some people are saying it could be third week in March, fourth week of March. So they're working with 6 to 8 week lead times at the moment. So what can the sheet plants be doing to sort of start improving the sort of the lead times, etc., to get the board to the customers, or the finished boxes to the customers? I mean, is it basics like looking at machine setups, again, also storage and utilization of materials?
I think that there's two elements. One is the bigger picture, where you've got the integrated companies. Are they going to start protecting themselves in terms of paper supply, and making sure that they just look after themselves, and does that leave some of the smaller businesses and some of the independents vulnerable to that? And that can be a worry. But as with all things, it's a careful path to tread, isn't it? Because when we come out of the cycle, people remember who's let them down and who hasn't. I think within many of the sheet plants, I think if you're talking, let's say a typical £10 million turnover business, then if board costs are 60 to 70% of your business, then you're spending £6 million, £7 million on paper. If you're adding in paper price increases of £50 a tonne, then the knock-on effect is that's going to put about take out about 2.5% of your turnover. That's what it's going to equate to. In and around 25k, 250k on board. And then if we look at waste in a typical sheet plant, probably being in and around 10%. Some be a little bit less, some be a little bit more. I know people will always quote the lowest numbers, but I think once you do the analysis financially of boarding versus what you sell out to customers, then 10% is not uncommon. And it's a 25% increase just from a waste point, £25,000 increase just from a waste point of view. I think if you're looking at a converting machine, if we took typically a mini line where, I don't know, the average blank size probably about 0.45 of a square meter is not untypical, then you can then start to look at that being, if we were looking at one bundle at a setup or two bundles at a setup to get an order up and running, it's not untypical for some machines and in some businesses I've seen where they're taking 10, 15 minutes to get going, and it's many bundles. And a lot of this can often be down to just how the machine's set up. But if you start factoring those things in, where 3 or 4 bundles is what you waste. If you can reduce your bundle count in terms of waste by a couple of bundles, then that can typically be 5% of your waste. Your microstops, if machines stop on average 4, 5, 6 times an hour, which again is not uncommon, it can very easily be another bundle that you're wasting every time you set up, rather than an odd box. You know, we all talk about one box setting or two box setting, but there aren't that many that actually do that. You know, and all too often you do see that it's considerably bigger numbers. And if you're running at those sorts of levels, where if you could save, you know, two bundles at a setup, and half the bundle, you know, reduces downtime by half in terms of microstops, you could potentially be looking there at about 6% of your waste on a machine.
So Mike, is that training, or is it maintenance, or combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, training, more often than not, the guys know what they're doing. Sometimes it's just historical. This is how the times you go in a business and you hear that this is how we've always done it. So there's the management of that, management of the training, management of what's expected with people, and the bringing people along with you. And then, of course, yeah, there's the asset care surrounding the machine. And I would say that 70% of the problem will be just cleaning, keeping it clean and keeping things right. But, you know, if you've got a feeder that's not right, then we're talking about board registration, board alignment issues. If you've got, you know, whether it's print rolls, annulus rolls, pull rolls through the machine, again, alignment, registration issues, get into your folding section, gluing issues, gap control, and then you get into the back end of the machine with the strappers and palletizers. Then we're talking about product damage, the aesthetics of the product as it comes out. And all these things can be largely dealt with through making sure machines are set up right, they're clean, and they're calibrated on a regular basis. You know, if feeder gaps on, if it's feed rolls, then, you know, if the gap should be X, it's not too hard to check that it's X just once a week. And if it's not right, plan in to get it put right. Because if not, and if you've got feed roll wear in the middle, as you would typically get, then all that you're going to do is the operators just put more pressure on, so then they damage the board, so then you lose box performance, and then you get returns. So it's all a vicious circle. And if you can improve in those areas, not only are you going to save from a waste point of view, because you're going to reduce the downtime, you're going to hopefully through working with your people, you know, introduce one box setting or those sorts of pit stopping principles, get things up and running more quickly, get things up and running with less waste, then you potentially can be looking at putting about 4% back into your capacity of your business. Add in the fact now that the machines can run better, the guys will be more confident with their machines, they'll generally run them more quickly. You know, come back to what we've said before. If the guys can see that you're taking them seriously and dealing with the problems and removing the issues for them, then you're more likely to engage with them, and they'll pay that back. Generally, they'll pay that back in spades. And you know, if they can then see that you're helping them, they'll help you. As I say, the machines will run for longer. The machines will run with less waste, and that 4% improvement we're talking about could easily be doubled in many situations with not a lot of input, no, almost zero capital investment. Yeah, you might have to spend a little bit on some of your rolls and things like that, but we're not talking significant numbers, and these things should be done anyway as part of your engineering plan.
So Mike, in the bigger board plants, the integrated type of companies, you know, they're all utilising the sort of, you know, the Kiwi plans of this world that have waste reporting tools, where they're able to actually monitor and see where that waste is occurring within the business, whether it's in real stocks, whether it's performance on the corrugator, whether it's in the converting. But what's your experience, you know, more at the sheet plant level? I mean, do you think that a lot of these sheet plants are fully, you know, up to speed with analysing where this waste is being created?
Some people are really good at it. You go around, there's some businesses that are really good, but whether that's a sheet plant or an integrated, but in both categories, I think you can find that there are people and businesses that are not using the information. Some of them have got the systems, have got the tools, yeah, Kiwi and and Vitron and all those different systems are great, but not everybody uses them particularly well. Some people just aren't really using them. Some people haven't got the skills, or people have left the business that did have the skills, and they've not been followed up. As I say, I've been into businesses before where you go in and you look around a warehouse and nobody's doing a weekly stock report. It's just.
And Mike, if we, when we're talking particularly there about stock check, it leads on to quite an interesting business model that, not just in the UK, I mean, this is globally as well, that there are some corrugated box plants that base their business on a sort of stock and serve. So, literally they're almost gambling, aren't they? That a particular customer is going to require X amount of boxes over the course of a year. They produce it in longer runs and then they're serving it on a weekly or even a daily basis.
Yeah.
Do you feel that at the moment where paper is in tight supply, sheet feeding is on 8-week lead times, I mean, do you think being on that sort of just-in-time delivery, that stock and serve, do you think that's a bit of a sticky area at the moment?
I think it's difficult for people to maintain that. I mean, clearly, if your incoming paper supply or board supply is restricted, then your ability to do that really, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because if I'm going to run twice as much as I need to get, because that's what I've always done, because that's how we get the efficiencies through the business, but that means I'm going to let a customer down, then most people are just going to have to start cutting their order quantities back. But then, of course, you run into you don't get the operational benefits of that. So you've got more startups, you've got more waste, you've got more downtime. So it's even more important that we use any opportunities that we can to work at what are the things that can help us, which is dealing with your downtime issues, looking at setups and trying to get your waste number down. And often as well is just communicating to your workforce what you're doing and why you're doing it, and explaining to them why order quantities have come down. Because if you explain to them why you're doing it, then you won't get the moans and groans that you might normally do.
Well, listen, Mike, thank you ever so much indeed. It's been great catching up with you on this. I mean, obviously, hot topic. And from the conversation we've just had here, there's an awful lot that can be done that doesn't require tens of thousands of investments. It's literally fine tuning. It's looking at your data, using your systems, talking to your people, hopefully this proves as a nice sort of thought provoker for the industry. So, Mike, thanks ever so much indeed. Great to catch up, and we'll look forward to sitting down again soon.
Okay, Dan. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.